Welcome everyone. Councillors, Deputy Mayor, members of staff, DE, Kirsty, good to see you online. And welcome. And members of the press and everyone around here. We recording. Okay, if I could ask Councillor Shepherd to the question for today. Thank you.
Tuia ki te mauri o te whenua, tuia ki te mana o te tangata, tuia ki te pono, te aroha, kia piki, kia eke, ki te taumata hui tai.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shepherd. Beautiful. So we'll go to item number 2 is apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Hector, I believe. Yeah. And Kirsty's online with the full house. Thank you. Could I have move for Councillor Fletcher? Thank you, Councillor Parks, Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Carry. Item number 3, conflicts of interest. Any conflicts of interest pertaining to the items today? Okay, we'll go straight forward to 4.1, which is contract CM 564 Māori water rising main. We have Mr. Tom Swindell. Morning, Tom.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, today I'd like to request some unbudgeted water expenditure of $875,000 for the delivery of the Māori water rising main project. I'd also like to request that council accepts the tender from CivTech for this contract. A little bit of background for you. So we've had numerous failures over the last, I would say, 5 years on our water network that supplies from the treatment plant in Māori up to the reservoirs and services the Māori, Kuratau and Pukawa communities. This has caused significant water supply outages for those communities. We did plan a project for delivery in the upcoming long-term plan across years 1 and 2. But sort of some recent failures in March across a weekend has sort of brought us to the point where we feel this project needs to be brought forward into the current year. Yeah, we're proposing a new rising main from the treatment plant direct to the reservoirs and installation of a burst control valve at the reservoirs. And we believe that this will significantly reduce the risk of failures on the rising main network going forward. We've done a fast track design and tender process over the last month. We've done the tender with our water reticulation construction panel, and we've got a firm price and a program from the successful tenderer CivTech for delivery within 3 months. So the project should be done sort of towards the end of July this coming year. And I suppose it's just officers' strong recommendation that council accepts the proposed resolutions, because we do feel it's pretty critical for those communities.
Thank you. But can I just ask, with the 875,000? I mean, to me, it's moderate significant, so I don't have a problem with it. However, is it because the LTP's pushed out that the whole amount is being asked for in this financial year, or does our financial year still end at the end of June? Because I'm just wondering how this is between unbudgeted expenditure this year versus some spread into year 1.
My comment, and I hope it's correct, is that so to award the contract, we need to have expenditure. At the moment, there is no expenditure because the LTP doesn't actually exist yet. Well, you know, it's not approved. The project wasn't actually in the last LTP because the pipeline at that stage wasn't at a point where we thought it needed replacement or renewal. So yeah, basically the funding doesn't exist at all. We need the funding there to be able to award the contract. Yes, the funding or the expenditure will carry over slightly into that year one. But yeah, we need that money approved now.
Actually, paying it actually about.
Oh, I completely get the timing. Is there nothing in the bellway in the water renewal space that can be used so that we can stay at above budgeted expenditure, or is that not appropriate?
We have had a bit of a look as to what we may be able to substitute, I guess, and we weren't able to find anything. We have done a little bit of juggling on to allow other projects to proceed recently, and yeah, I was unable to find something that fit the same expenditure profile, I guess, that allowed the finance team to move money.
Thank you.
Councillor Greenslade.
Thank you, Richard. I would just like to commend the staff for pushing this forward, actually. The recent weekend situation, we had 3 weddings and the water went down. And of course, staff were in a dreadful situation because they had to get water out to the hall. And then we realised that there was water out in another locality that we did going on. And so it must have been absolutely terrible for you, to be honest, trying to cover that. Apart from the fact, of course, all the residents as well, too. This has been an ongoing problem. It's almost just got to be a joke, to be honest now. I mean, every 5 minutes there's a water break out there, as there was, what, last 24 hours, 48 hours, there was one, yeah. So of course then the cost of sending a water tanker out there, and then all the associated costs with operational costs. I mean, we must be just about racking up the amount that it's going to cost to replace it at this stage. So I suspect that's what staff have realised, that it's just, you know, it's sort of, and it's unfortunate because it's, as the paper tells you, it's failure or something that should have been expected to have lasted a lot longer. So I'd just like to speak on behalf of the Māori residents and ratepayers out there. They will be very, very grateful that I've decided to do this.
Thank you, Councillor Greenslade. No, you're right.
No, I think I'm quite happy to move actually.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
I'm changing my question to second.
I second it.
We can move that.
Okay, yes, Councillor Campbell.
Oh, no, just, PVC pipe failure, you know, second time I've heard it this morning, is same sort of deal that with the lakefront thing that happened several years ago, because that's what caused that, pipe failure, caused the wastewater pipe to go into the lake. Are we talking about the same?
Same, yes, same material involved. Yep. Very different circumstances, I would say.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's a bit of a theme, though. PV site, of those pipes installed a certain generation.
Yes. What I can say on that, because we are seeing some early failure of PVC material, particularly that material installed sort of in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yeah, we do a lot of work with consultants, WSP, who have a lab down in Christchurch, who use some pretty amazing methods to analyse the pipe failures. And yeah, there does appear to have been some material problems, the manufacturing issues with pipe sort of during that period.
And we can't get any money out of the manufacturers from that long ago?
Not 30 years later, no, unfortunately.
Even though it was warranted 50 years or something. Or whatever. No. So in terms of preempting when the next block goes, I mean, you know where the next where they all are, and
look, we've got a very, very good asset management system and mapping system with locations of all our pipes and materials. I guess the problem we have is that we've got significant lengths of pipe still, asbestos pipe, galvanized pipe that is near or at end of life. So it's quite frustrating when we've then got to sort of also be trying to plan for some PVC pipe as well that is potentially nearing end of life. It is making some of our renewal planning quite challenging. I can't say we're totally on top of it. We do plan as best we can, but at the same time, we have to juggle when things start failing, because often what happens with these sorts of networks is once you have one failure, often it'll fail a little bit further down because it's sort of been, you know, shaken up, damaged through the failure that's occurred. So look, we're doing the best we can. I do expect over the coming years we're going to see some other areas where PVC pipe may be failing early. We're already seeing some on some of our rural schemes such as Tauranga and Whakaroa. So we're sort of starting to look at those in an early stage around when we might look to renew some of the pipes on those schemes. But our focus at the moment remains sort of the asbestos and galvanised steel, but where we see repeated failures like this, we certainly have to act. Oh,
it just occurred to me, because on pipe, we don't pay insurance per se for these. That's sort of what the TEL fund is there to cover this. Is that, that's my understanding, am I getting it wrong? That's sort of the reserves to cover for issues like this. So we get the money, can we get the money out of the TEL fund for that?
Through the chair, the TEL fund is there for a disaster recovery situation. It's not there for a general renewal or replacement of underground assets.
So,
Sure, our underground assets.
No.
Okay. No other questions for Tom?
I just have one concern, Tom, is having to deal with personal water supplies and pipes and things like that, leaving PVC out in the sunshine, which I see are new blue pipes out and around the place. Is that best practice what we're doing? Like you drive towards Napier and you see all of that PVC pipe. I mean, are we doing the best by our infrastructure by having things lying out in the sun with the UV rays and the risk of them breaking down? Because it's been a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, look, the PE pipes do have a special element to their material that protects them somewhat from the sunlight, and certainly though they shouldn't be sitting in the sun too long. We are monitoring that with our contractors, so they're getting the pipes in as quick as they can. But certainly over the short period that they're working on those projects, there shouldn't be any impact from sunlight.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Oh, can I just suggest maybe the framework of the TEL fund could be expanded a little to cover stuff like this, because it's going to come up again. And
that's something that we review. Yeah, how can we review the TEL fund next?
Well, you've literally just done that process.
Yes. Didn't think of this one.
Next time. All right, thank you, Tom. Another question has been moved by Councillor Shepherd, I believe, and seconded by this is approved. Good news for the people of Māori as for the Green Place comments, but you don't have to report next. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Approval of submission to the fast track approvals for Karen. Good morning.
Good morning, your bishop and councillors. Sorry, I'm losing my voice today, so I'll try to speak up. Okay. Okay. Sure. I am the only other non-LTP item on the agenda, so I will try to keep this brief. I'm fully aware you've got a really few. Take the paper as read. I have made some notes, which I need my glasses for. Try to get me focused. So this is regarding our submission to the fast track approvals bill. The bill is one of the first in the government's reform of the resource management system. This one has much broader scope to previous fast track legislation, includes a one-stop shop for large projects obtaining approvals under various legislation. There's a broad range of projects that can apply for this, provided they are regionally or nationally significant. So for this district, think solar farms, power stations, that sort of scale, or, really large housing development, for example. Expert panel recommends to joint ministers whether to approve or decline an application. In your paper in front of you, I've got the makeup of the expert panel, and it does include a local authority representative. Joint minister make the final decision, and that includes the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport and concerns about the bill. It was rushed through. As a result, the different acts are not very well integrated into the legislation. For example, you get input from the different ministries at different stages of the process, and that's quite difficult for the expert panel to assess an application. Their timeframes are quite tight and potentially unworkable, particularly given the scale of these projects that you're thinking about and the large volume of expert evidence that would be required, to assess these applications. At the time of writing this report, we didn't have the sector submissions, but we actually got the Taupō one came through last night. So I just had a quick review of it this morning. They've got concerns that the economic imperative for sustainability. They recommend that the bill aligns with the RMA for the sustainable management, that they've got concerns that the inclusion of such a wide range of legislation hasn't been fully assessed. There is uncertainty about how the process will actually work in practice. There's too much emphasis on fast risks undermining quality decision making, ensuring local government involvement in all aspects. There's also one interesting one they raised, concern that there'll be a burden on local government resulting from the handover of assets associated with ill-conceived housing or other developments that have not been the subject of usual local government exercise. There is a lack of clarity about whether council administered reserve land is actually included. They recommend that decisions should sit with the expert panels, not with the joint ministers. They want to ensure ministers declare their conflicts of interest and that these are publicly reported, and that there is clear criteria that establishes significance, including for housing developments. Iwi and Hapu will make their own submissions. Even though the process does not apply to Māori land and treaty settlement land, our partnership agreements go beyond that. So in our submission, we've talked about making sure that the progress we've made with our agreements is, not eroded by this type of decision making. We also had a concern that the treaty clause were not included in this legislation. Other key points I've raised include ensuring that the process aligns with our council infrastructure strategies and spatial plans, ensuring environmental safeguards are kept in place, concerns about the Minister for the Environment not being included as one of the joint ministers, concerns about overriding RMA provisions, including allowing for activities that are prohibited under district plans, and making sure there's robust decision making. So our submissions are due this Friday, but I'm happy to take any feedback and amend the submission if you so wish. And then the submissions will be reviewed. A select committee will hear submitters.
There was concern at an emergency management perspective around fast tracking projects, but not taking into account Civil Defence Emergency Management Act 2002. Section 17 and also Section 49. Section 17 is about identifying and assessing the risks and cost-effective risk reduction, like don't rebuild on land that's already been affected by natural hazards and whatnot. But the Joint Committee for the Waikato are making a submission on that. So, but I do notice the reference to civil defence and natural hazards. I'm also really pleased to see that Schedule 2, that you open it up, that all submissions, all public are consulted in that regard, and also that it is that the expert panel cannot be ignored by the joint ministers. I was really pleased to see. We need to have that layer of protection. We don't need white elephants being built under a fast track system. Or now, not realistic future.
Councillor Lachlan. I was very happy with the submission. I think it covers off all the main points. We've done this in the past when we beefed them up a little bit. I'd support Evan to present for us.
I wasn't volunteering.
No, but I was volunteering you. Just because you know where to strengthen the submission. But yeah, the reality is this government's on its own track. Hopefully some of our concerns will come into some of the mix, but otherwise it's going to get, I'm not sure that we'll actually have any major projects like the fast track in Aotearoa. I think you'll find that Auckland is another of those ones will be the one for, which I could be wrong on that one. I mean, obviously there are some concerns, but yeah, from an iwi space, there's concerns that this is more around trying to erode the Resource Management Act. That's part of why this is like the first step. Put this through, we'll just do the rest of the RMA. But yeah, my personal view is support the fast track, just don't support the rules and protections being overridden. I think fast track will help with the little grinds and things, and I think that's appropriate, but the actual some of the protections that we have and our own good work, I would hope that to be impacted. But it'll be a wait and see, I guess. But yeah, happy to move that we support the submission with a slight bit of strengthening where Kevin wanted it, and I would support Kevin as our presenter.
Okay, we're moving one and two.
Yeah,
I just Councillor Taylor, you end up being Councillor Greenslade.
Well, I'm happy to present the select committee on the understanding. I have a couple of the policy team. I'm looking at Nick at the back there, who are available and support as we have done previously. Without going into detail, there is actually the potential for this to be used in a major subdivision, which was part of the district plan change, all of which is on the website. It's there and open for anyone to read. I can just see this potentially happening. We're not careful.
Councillor Greenslade.
Sort of following on what Councillor Taylor's just said, I'm thinking the positive effects for us in this district if we want to, some of the things that we've got in mind already. I see what you said, and I actually agree with those things where the safeguards can be, sort of put aside. But can you see positives for us, Erin?
Julie and I had a talk about this, about what could be possible. And we talked about, would a second bridge, for example, be something that would be considered? At the moment, that probably wouldn't fit the regionally significant criteria unless it was in the regional transport strategy, for example. I think that's the test, is it regionally significant? The solar farm that we approved last year, that would be an example. I know, reading some notes from Tina Paro's presentation last night to Iwi and Hapu, there were concerns about whether something like the Tongariro power development, an example like that would happen again, and concerns about that. But in a positive aspect, I mean, if there was, a solar farm could be a good one, for example, or a bridge, but I can't think of any others. Oh, okay.
Really good project.
State highway would be considered a regionally, nationally significant project. Yes. Yeah.
Just really well done getting this together so quickly. Central government just kind of lumped this in our laps, which goes to my point, I guess, is that I'm concerned that once again we've got really rushed legislation. There's contradictions throughout. There's conflicting legislation that's being, ignored, I guess, or able to be overridden. Could we not just urge them to slow down a bit? We've seen what happens and with previous governments when legislation is rushed and unintended consequences are not fully considered. I just take time to pause and really get this right. I'd like to see a bit of emphasis on the fact that we've been down this track with legislation being pushed really, really quickly and it hasn't ended well. Let's not make the same mistake.
Question, Councillor Leonard?
I'll reiterate the voice of everybody. Thank you. These submissions are not easy to write. I guess just the real point that I would like to make to central government is local voices making local decisions. People that have been here for generations and generations understand idiosyncrasies. Often we see decisions that are made from afar. You know, if you forget the boots on the ground, the shoes on the carpet make the wrong decisions. So just having one local representative probably isn't enough to represent the voice of our community adequately, would be just something that I would like to emphasise there. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Darren. I think there's amendments as suggested there from very good comments around the table. So, much appreciated. That's it, done. So, been moved by Councillor Loughnane, seconded by thank you, Councillor Greenfield. 1 and 2 of the recommendation there. All those in favour, say aye. Aye. Yeah. Thanks, Darren. Item 4.3, approval of the draft treasury management policy.
Before you underway, the next part of the meeting is actually very much on our.
It was yesterday. Thanks so much. Just a day late, but it's okay. Had a great day. Spoiled by my children. Oh, and my partner, just because this is being recorded. Oh, I'm sure. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming this morning. I just wanted to touch on a couple of points. The first being that appreciate that there has been a large amount of reading required in preparation for today's meeting. And so, yeah, we as staff, we really appreciate you working through that. And also just to clarify that today is a chance to ask questions, given the amount of reading that has come there. So ask questions, seek clarification. If you decide that you're not in a comfortable space to move a piece of work into approving it for audit today, that's absolutely okay. We're coming back again on the 3rd of May to basically seek your approval on the draft supporting information and the draft consultation for audit review on the 3rd of May. So yes, today, feel free to ask questions, clarification, and take your time to work through those pieces of work. Just another note here that lunch will be arriving at 12:15. So I know. And the way that things are running, I would say that you'll probably, hopefully, could wrap up one of the last conversations around 12:30 and then reconvene at about 1 o'clock to continue the meeting after that. So just to let you know that is coming. Finally, I just wanted to let you know that I will be circulating just a little diagram to you about upcoming meetings. I know that we've got a lot of meetings this part of the month and at the start of May, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone was really clear on the purpose of each of those meetings and what was coming up. And as always, more than happy to take your calls or emails if there is anything that's unclear about what's coming up. There is a lot of detail in this LTP process, and particularly right now where we're trying to prepare things for audit review. So, yes. Yes.
Sorry. And I know that papers also detail when you start to go away and do. I do appreciate, however, sometimes these conversations may feel like they were quite some time. But bringing it back to council.
Very good. Okay.
Yes, that's all.
Morena, Your Worship, Councillors. I'm here to talk to you about the Treasury Management Policy. I'm here to talk to you about the Treasury Management Policy. So the Treasury Management Policy outlines our policies, procedures, performance measures and delegations as regards to the management of our investments and borrowings and some of our other capital financial transactions. It's in place to ensure that we have a prudent and conservative focus on those items and on the reporting of those, on the management and the reporting of those items. You may recall that Miles from Bancorp attended a meeting mid last year to just before I think Sarah went away, or when Sarah was away, to talk about the proposed changes to the Treasury Management Policy. And we have reviewed those and also done some changes in relation to job titles and stuff within the document. And that is what has been attached today. The main changes are outlined in the item. So we have changed the net external debt and to the total revenue borrowing limit from 225% to 250%. We've changed to a simpler, easier to manage fixed rate hedging percentages. We've removed the control limits for financial market investments as the limits contradict the requirement to match investments with cash flow, which is that's basically our prime purpose of managing our operating cash, is to make sure that we've got money at the right time to pay the bills. We've updated the authorised investment parameters, updated the performance measures and updated the roles, responsibilities and delegations. So that's all outlined in the policy. So I'm happy to take any questions. I'll do my very best to answer them, but I may have to come back to you on some of the more technical points.
Thank you, Jeanette. Yes, it's a weighty document. Congratulations. Can you just talk us through about the rationale behind raising the external debt from 225 to 250%?
First of all, it's a self-imposed limit. It's not a limit that is imposed by government, like some of the financial prudence measures are. And it, I think it matches the LGFA limit for us as well. So it's probably better to have those two matters aligned than have a different. I don't know if Julie's got any comment on that as well.
Well, I was just going to say, do you foresee that we will go to that limit, or is it just the opportunity to do that?
Currently, no, we're not reaching that limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a question on that limit debt ceiling thing. Yeah, I was. So it's not a. We could impose upon ourselves a 500% limit.
No.
No, there is a limit.
Yeah, so we borrow from the local government funding agency, yes. And our limit with them, their ratio for us is 250%.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we're going to.
So we wouldn't be able to borrow if we went over that.
Yes. Oh, okay.
It would restrict our borrowing.
No, okay. Yeah, I mean, the insinuation is, well, more debt. Well, I've always thought more debt is bad, so we don't really want to go there. We don't.
No. No, and we in our current modelling of the LTP, we're not.
So, but this is just sort of a just in case.
Well, it's aligning the measure with the local government, with the LGFA. With their measure, and to achieve the objectives of the financial strategy.
I believe that 12 years ago, that was the limit, some of those limit anyway, 250. I think with the LB, CBLB, and the financial strategy, some of the precedent, before.
That's a lot.
The reality of our difficult situation, you want to keep that flexibility, even if it's just for a long-term plan. So even if it's just to show that I'm assuming that might be part of the driver as well. But that obviously makes sense for us to align. Generally speaking, appreciated that you provided the track changes document as well. It was easy to see that most of it was cosmetics, albeit, picked up some good points to be consistent with our new SIPO and everything else. And yeah, like everybody else, I didn't get to read every line, but I gave it a good go. And when anybody's finished their questions, happy to support it. But does this go through because it goes through the long-term plan, it also gets auditors look at it?
Auditors will look at it, yes.
That also should give us some confidence in terms of the scale. So we'll have to demonstrate that all our numbers and KPIs and heat limits and things are all together. So yeah, once everybody else has done their questions, I'm happy to move.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Taylor.
For a comment, thank you for presenting the item the way it is. Having track changes and comments in there on a policy that we are updating is really helpful. Particularly as, unlike Councillor Lockman, I'm not an accountant, and so reading through this was, for me, hard work. But having that in there draws attention to what we're actually signing off on. So that was really helpful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Councillor Shepherd.
Just for my own peace of mind, because like Councillor Taylor, I'm not an accountant. And those tracked changes were absolutely vital for me to understand this document, I must say, so thank you. And if I'm understanding it correctly, a lot of it is to align our SIPO settings and some definitions and aligning with LGFA. And I see you've got the major changes here. Is there anything that you feel should be highlighted with us at this point, just in case I haven't picked up on that?
No, so we've changed our Treasury advisors from one company to another, and so they have a different view on the world, and so some of those changes have been brought about by how they prefer us to manage. So it's given us a little bit more, probably given us a little bit more flexibility, especially when it comes to interest rate swaps, which is how we hedge our debt cost. So it's given us more flexibility in that area than what we had before.
I think I'm very comfortable with the overview of the management structure. Is that 1.3.1? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah,
just to express on a little bit, somewhat uncomfortable with just increasing debt limits because we can, just because, just basically speaking, if you have access to more credit, there's a tendency to take it when you can. Yeah, go on.
My comment earlier is everyone around this table doesn't want to borrow unnecessarily. So I think we're all clear on that. But the issue that we have is that with all the capital works that we need to do with 3 waters and everything else, that we're going to get close to that limit. And let's say, for example, we're over our current one, under LGFA's one, which is what we're moving to, we wouldn't be able to sign off our plan. And you don't, we've done our, all credit to your team to the work they've done today, but who knows what final wash up might look like. So having that ability is helpful. But I don't think anybody around this room is going to borrow money just for the sake of borrowing money. It's because we do have these things in our plan which will need debt financing. In our perfect world, the interest rates will drop a lot sooner and we'll be in a much better place. But we don't know that, so tying an arm around their back for planning purposes doesn't seem helpful.
Fairly summed up. I think like the $250 target.
Yeah. That's back.
I'm just happy to second the recommendation.
When we're talking about capital works program, yes, my scanning of some of them, I'm just not convinced that we haven't done enough thinking outside the square, and that, that, well, I mean, I'm an engineer. Engineers spend money when they can, generally speaking, and you give it to them. So giving engineers access to less money means that a bit more thinking outside the square is more likely to happen. So that's my point of view on that. I think we could manage with the current debt levels. I do. That's what I think. That's mine.
Okay, thank you. Been moved by Councillor Lachlan, seconded by Councillor Park. Any other commentary? No? All that, and the recommendation is on the screen there. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Yeah. Thank you.
Same.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, 4.4, Philip, approval of significant assumptions for long-term plan. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. So on this paper, we're seeking your approval to include the significant assumptions as part of the LTP consultation, and obviously subject to any changes from the audit process. So these assumptions are used by the different parts of our business to inform their work and somewhat directed. So for example, the assumption on population projections, it's used by our asset managers, by our finance team, and by us in policy. So just to step back, so an assumption is significant if it has a material impact on council's revenue, OPEX, future OPEX, CAPEX, or service levels. And what is material is determined by the asset manager or finance, depending on what the assumption is. Last year, we had workshopped a first set of assumptions. They were non-financial assumptions, and you subsequently endorsed them. From then, we did some changes and updates. So for example, we updated the three waters reform assumption because we've moved on from what we had assumed, and now included also some financial assumptions. And we had also engaged an external consultant to review them. So we presented you two options. Option one is to approve the assumptions with some minor changes. Or option two is to have more substantial changes, but that risks us delaying and to meet the 3rd of May deadline. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thanks for that, Philip. And just one comment you raised, population is one of the assumptions. And I note in the commentary of peak population is predicated on visitors and holiday homeowners, peak season January or December, end of January. But I'm also conscious that we have a number of major events and an increasing number of those, and the peak population of those events, I would venture to say, outstrips the holiday periods. And I wonder whether we need to actually take that into cognizance in part of our assumptions.
Yep, I agreed with you, and we will include it.
Following on from what Councillor Taylor has just said, I get that these are assumptions. However, I'm looking at 2050 being 5,000 for Turangi, knowing that the enrolled patients at Penhanga Health are currently 5,000, and that those people are all pretty much local, according to the practice manager there. In addition to that, there are some hundreds of properties that are in batch care that are under Airbnb, and so at any time in our district, even though these people are not permanent, they are using our services and they are living there, essentially. And then on top of that, as Councillor Taylor just mentioned, the large number of events that we have in the area, knowing that every bed in Turangi is full this weekend. I'm thinking that that assumption is just a wee bit out, and I'm not sure how helpful that is for our ongoing planning in Turangi to be out by 1,000 people. I think that you also have to take into account the fact that there is growth going on in the district, as you well know at present, and it has become reasonably popular to move to the district. One of the reasons is because of the reduced rental rates down there. They're some hundreds of dollars less than the Taupo, and all my neighbours commute up here to work. So I'm just thinking that your assumption for there and thinking about the services that we're providing and where we're going might be just a bit light.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, just one suggestion. So those figures come out of the population growth model that we have in house, and the source is Statistics New Zealand. For the data, we can propose to them, because those figures represent the medium scenario. We can include in that assumptions the low and the high scenarios, but the basis for that is Statistics New Zealand and our model.
Turangi is well known for being a fairly independent-minded community. Their likelihood of completing their census is fairly low. And I would prefer your assumptions to be higher rather than lower for the district. I just don't think it will serve the community of Turangi that well to have a lower assumption.
May I suggest we include the low and high scenarios in the assumption?
I appreciate there's probably two parts that go on with this. This is a very common debate pretty much every 3 weeks around our growth assumptions. I should be mindful that you be cautious around your planning assumptions for your LTV versus your views on what you believe the growth should be, what it actually is. Firstly, we need to be audited on our underlying growth assumptions. They look at the work that we've done to be able to prove these numbers. So we have to be able to be justified at a very detailed level. Numbers paid. And often the reliance on Statistics New Zealand census, rightly or wrongly, becomes the basis for what it is. I also say that, you know, from a financial perspective, if you assume too high in your growth rates, you're actually taking in terms of the money that you're likely to get back from your income sources, from rates, development contributions. And so there's a need to be mindful or to be cautious, because that's how we do it. So I think often we get criticism because we might be looking at being conservative with our planning, and yes, we are conservative with our planning because of the impact it has on potentials, as opposed to our views on what the future of our district might be, which obviously the extremely positive is.
Thank you for that, Julie. So can I ask you what the purpose of the assumptions are in that case?
So these are underlying financial assumptions. So this is the basis for our financial income reflections or our project assessments, as opposed to what we believe might be the future of our district. These are financial based assumptions. Okay.
Well, it's probably not the right place to talk about it, but as the trustee of Country Trust for that district, I had 5,000 beneficiaries. Those are homes actually existing that are connected to the grid. I mean, that's a fact. That figure comes out of the lines company. So when you talk about what you just said, even that doesn't follow, because those are in existence at present. Anyway, I'm not going to debate it any further. You've heard what I've got to say. I think it's not helpful to be long.
Right, I think it was Councillor Lachlan and Councillor Shepard.
I think the point's been made that these are things that have been through our independent consultant and will be audited. So when we basically go through the auditing process, we need to be able to want to be able to say what, verify with the numbers. So anecdotal evidence from Young Health, and we know that they've been enrolling people from Taupo-Kaingaroa to make them to get their revenue up, has been happening. That's true. That's true. Anyway, because I've been told. Anyway, that aside, but it is the independence in terms of being able to verify that. And I'm quite clear that, like Johnny said, these are the drivers for our long-term plan modelling. Our goal is not trying to guess the exact number of people that are living in Turangi, and it's to come up with drivers for this model that can be verified. But I've got a lot of confidence that because it's gone through the independent consultant, it's going through the Audit New Zealand type process, that the purpose of this whole exercise, which is to produce a long-term plan, in particular the budget aspect of it, will be robust. And happy for Councillor Queensley to say, I told you so, if she gets re-elected in the next election and those numbers go through the roof.
Just for clarification, Lake Taupō Bays, what does that cover?
So that covers Pukawa, Omori and Kurotau.
That might answer Wednesday's question.
Councillor Shepherd, you're probably absolutely right. Thank you very much.
You know that in the minutes.
Thanks. One of the others brought up actually to add, following Councillor Taylor's comments about big populations, with events coming, major events coming in. I think to me some of the mitigation consequence may be higher, but be higher, but that could be the mitigation to cover that. Obviously, the mitigation, keep population view on an annual basis, possible, but and actually advised accordingly. So I see what you're saying, that can come to assumption when they're also planning the information. In the census report.
So for this year's census around August, they are likely to start publishing information, possibly earlier. Yes, unfortunately.
Okay, Philip, any other questions of Philip? Councillor Campbell.
Oh yeah, just harping back to the previous thing, the capital works program. I mean that's if I clarify, but if we approve this, that's approving the figures, including the capital works figures, to go into the consultation document for the long-term plan. Is that?
No.
So the assumptions, yes, the assumptions to go to get fed into the long-term plan. That's what we're doing, isn't it? Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely, but the assumptions, these are the ones that our asset managers and our managers across the organisation looked at in terms of thinking about growth projects and future. But by no means today are you approving financial forecasts for the capital program projects. You're approving assumptions. No.
No, okay, well, okay. Yeah, I just don't like. I think we could be spending less on capital works. I think that could be examined closer prior to us throwing the numbers in. And
Councillor Fowler.
Through the chair, with all due respect, I appreciate Councillor Campbell's comments, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the agenda item. This is about assumptions, not about capital works. We're about spending. It's entirely different. In respect to our request, we stay on the subject we're discussing, and if we're finished, I'm happy to move it.
Oh, but just to clarify my understanding, I mean, one of the assumptions here is the capital works program, and that's why I'm bringing it up. I mean, is that not what?
So this
Yes, I'd just like to ask you about the limit on the rate increases, Philip. Is that imposed by government, or is that a self-imposition? The no greater than local, than the plus the 5%. Is that us or is that government that imposes that on us?
That's us.
Us, it's us, okay. And we're doing all right with that at present?
We are in the outer years of the LTP, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. All right, okay, back to the recommendations that on the screen there. Did I, Councillor Morgan? You move it.
More than happy if you want me to.
Sorry, yeah. Through the chair, can I just ask just to clarify for mine?
Yeah, so it's been moved by Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Williamson. Clarification from Councillor Campbell.
No, well, significant assumptions. I mean, just getting back to the capital works program, the budget. So the clarify for me, please. So where the significant assumption is that we're doing this value of, well, these alternate values, 70, 90, 100%. I would recognise there's estimates in there. But we, for example, are we assuming that the 100% delivery figures for capital works for the next 10 years are these figures put in here? Is that one of our significant assumptions moving forward through the long-term plan process?
Through the chair, the purpose of that assumption is to show the effect of achieving different levels of capital expenditure on our debt and our interest cost. So it's taking a percentage to say we only did 90%. This is the effect that would, this is what the debt would be if in that case. It's not confirming that those are the figures, those are our current assumptions.
Thank you.
I think approval of the draft and revenue and financing policy for consultation. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, the revenue and financing policy. It's quite a key council document and it sits in behind the long-term plan, so we typically review it at the same time. It's got quite significant implications, particularly on people and what they're required to pay through both rates and through fees and charges. As elected members, you're required to determine the most appropriate method of funding council's particular activities and services and facilities. And in determining the appropriate source of funding for these, there's a few things you're required to consider. So I'm just going to jump through those. The first is who benefits from the activity, including sort of the time period that happens. Is it the community as a whole? Is it a particular part of the community, or is it the particular users? Who causes the harm or need for the action? And that's where you might think about the works we do to manage dangerous dogs or pick up litter. And then, of course, the practicality of any particular method. Even if you identify the main beneficiaries of the pool are the pool users, you might identify you can't charge them 100% of costs because they won't come in the door. So those are the things you need to consider when you go through this policy. And it's underneath this, there are three policies that then set the actual rates. So this sets the high level direction on who you think should fund your activities, including whether or not there'll be rates on part of the district, rates on the whole district, rates for particular types of activities in terms of separating out commercial from residential, say. And then our funding impact statement will then take that direction and set the actual rates that will then apply to people. It also sets, the revenue financing policy also sets how those rates are set. For example, that we use toilets as the basis for charging commercial activities. The more toilets you have, the more you pay. Or that for residential houses, they actually everyone pays the same for water or wastewater, regardless of the size of the house or the value of the house. So that's the sort of direction that's set in the revenue and financing policy. And then the actual charges based on your expenditure plans are set through the next order of policies. So the other key thing that this points out is for our particular activities, how much funding you expect to get through rates as a mechanism versus user charges at the door. And there's a number of percentages in there for various activities. And that's obviously got a key bearing on the next aspect we're talking about today, which is setting our fees and charges. And that comes down to the idea in terms of who benefits, what is an appropriate amount to get from the users who primarily benefit to contribute towards the cost. And I suppose the key aspect there in this policy and taken together when we discuss fees and charges is that over a number of years, we've seen high inflation, high interest, depreciation costs go up, operating costs, electricity go up. There's been significant cost increases. We've had significant rate increases. If you don't also put up fees, and historically we haven't kept up with those cost increases, you end up having to fund more through rates versus user charges. So you have to get the money either way. This is about you determining what is the appropriate method to get that money. In terms of changes, the main changes are adjustments to those percentage bands in the areas where we simply don't think we can get the money. So a number of those areas, things like the pools and our venue centres, there is very much a limit on how much you can get, even if you determine the users are the main beneficiaries. There's only a certain amount you can get. And in some instances, we recommend adjusting the band to be more realistic in terms of what you can get. But that's it for me in terms of setting out the key aspects of the policy and the things you need to consider.
Stagnant at $250 per household for a number of years, given what it does fund and given wage increases, inflation, insurance and all that. Is that being fair, keeping it at that same rate and not adjusting that slightly?
Certainly the UAGC is not sufficient to cover 100% of the activities that we have in there, although there are some changes. So previously 100% funded democracy and governance, but we now include a lot of our policy work in that catchment. So we've since looked at that and think we may need to adjust what the UAGC is specifically paying for. Whether or not it should increase in terms of cost is a trade-off, right? Basically, it increases the cost as a percentage or relative to smaller houses versus larger houses, right? You're either getting a uniform amount from everyone or you're basing it on the capital value. One thing I would point out, though, is that for water and wastewater, we already do those as fixed charges. So increasing the UAGC and keeping those as fixed charges would seem quite difficult for smaller households who can't do anything to avoid those rates.
Which way's the right way round, whether you adjust what the UAGC pays for or you adjust the UAGC? That's my only concern, but I think that's probably a much bigger conversation maybe next time when the timeline that we know what's happening with waters and all other good things are back on track.
That's a very good point. And if you look at what the UAGC is set down to fund, it's animal control. And there's not a particular reason why that would be the UAGC versus general rates that I can see. Emergency management, you could argue that everyone should be protected the same, or you could argue that wealthier, bigger households should contribute more. Again, there's no fine line on that. Democracy is the one where clearly you'd probably want everybody to contribute equally. And that's something we can look at to make sure whether or not the costs are appropriate to the 250 versus all the other activities that are actually lumped in that category. But with the other ones, and cemeteries is the other one, again, it doesn't appear to be a clear rationale for that. So there's flexibility and a choice around there. Democracy is the one we could advise you on if you're specifically wanting to make sure it did cover that cost.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Bishop. Have we got a figure for the UAGC? Did I read that somewhere?
250.
It's on closer for GST, by the way.
$250, including GST, and it's unchanged since 2011-13.
Huge disparity across our whole district. So when the costs are spread across everybody, I think it feels a good system for the community. Having said that, when I looked at some of the fees that you propose for things like infringement, so forth. I'm a great believer of punitive too, I'm sorry. I really am, you know, you've been given an opportunity, you can't live and behave, it's a community rule, you're looking after our community. And when I saw things like, you know, I think it was the litter, the punitive charge was $100, well, go and get it off them, you know, don't let them get away with it.
So in terms of spreading costs, I just want to make clear that both general rates and the UAGC both spread the costs throughout the entire community. One, everybody pays the same amount. So a small 2-bedroom house pays $250. A 5-bedroom house, 3-bathroom also pays $250. The other one is based on valuation. So obviously the larger house pays more, but both spread the costs.
When I went through and looked at your proposed increases in your fees, which is sort of on the back of this really, I felt that they were good. And what we don't want to do, of course, is limit people's access to facilities, which we run anyway. So, you know, if we've got a beautiful facility sitting there and people are not using it because they can't afford to go through the door, we have to be very aware of that. So you're right, there's that happy medium of contribute please, but actually don't stop them walking through the door.
And the two have to tie together. So this is the first direction of who you think should pay. We will then go through the fees though and see what is practical and make sure that the two do balance up. So after this, in the next agenda item, we will go through those fees almost line by line to let you confirm them.
Campbell? Oh yeah, okay. Maybe the next bit of the last time to suggest this, but in general, I think we don't do enough for young people in the district. I don't think we do enough for younger people, so we'd be more inclined to subsidising their activities as much as we can. But well, the example here, well, Turangi pools, I reckon the under 16s, free admission for them. There's a good argument for it based on socio-economic proximity to the lake, and also because they had their you've had your sports development taken off you, because I think that adds that extra. Sorry,
Still in there.
well, it's still in there, but it's been delayed. It's been put off. Yeah, it's been put out. I think there's a really good argument. But
yeah, we'll definitely go through that in the next agenda item.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think this sort of sets the general policy though. I mean, if we use that example though, 96% is being covered by the ratepayer, not through direct charges. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So what you're talking about doing, we're doing that now. My only comment I want to make, because I just feel like is just that I was quite surprised that even with 91% of, say, for example, the Great Lakes Centre being ratepayer funded, the charges when you use the place are still quite steep. So it's just very, very surprising. Like you feel like when you're paying for it, it's freaking expensive, but you know, so obviously it's just a really expensive activity, and maybe we shouldn't do any more event centres. But yeah, so yeah, just note my surprise, but just comment in terms of Councillor Campbell, we're doing that now. So the sorts of activities like swimming pools and event centres, everything else, which are used by a lot of our youth, have more than adequate subsidy. And as you're aware, we get lots of comments from the private sector that they can do these things, charge people still use them.
Well, that's a
comment. Well, no, I mean you've got your hot pools, the bridge.
Oh,
people use it all the time. But happy with what's been proposed.
So you should have a look at that line and any venues so that for me, you know, we're paying 90% of the problem. Up there, animal feed, so you got a dangerous dog.
It's going up to consultation.
Yes, the actual feed, 74% basically didn't work hard back. Correct. Yeah, anyone want to come say about that? That's pretty much the same as with the usual. And
Largely, we've had these bands for some time, but what we've done is we've drifted away from maybe the middle of the band towards the bottom end of the band in many areas by cost outstripping the fee increases we've done. So some of the price increases we're suggesting are to get us close to that bottom of the band. In other areas, we're suggesting we can't even get that far, and we're suggesting a minor extension to the bottom of the band to allow them to get in, such as the pools.
Picking up on your comment about dog, I think the benefit of that is to the entire community with staff out and about. But if I pick up on the Greenslade's comments, those who then, the owners of dangerous or menacing dogs, yes, they should pay a fee as well, but it's not going to be them. I'm interested in more of a conversation around the UHFC, given that it hasn't moved in a considerable period of time. I don't feel we have enough information, or we've discussed it adequately enough to change anything at the moment, but it's a conversation worth having, given that we have not changed it, say 2011, was it?
12-13, I think, yep.
12-13. So that's more than a decade ago, and it's worth revisiting that. But I don't feel I'm in a position where I can go, leave it alone, blaze it, lower it, do whatever, without substantial background information to inform that decision.
The starting point would be indicating quite clearly what it is you think the UHSC should pay for. And then we could come back with information on what those costs are exactly. And we can make a call as to whether or not it's sufficient to meet that need. So I guess the question was, do you think it should still cover that 74% of animal fees? Should that be a fixed fee per house, or should that be a general rate according to value per house?
Isn't really sector, the lower rate payers are paying more.
Yeah.
Some of the higher rate payers are
Pay less.
That's the consequence by ideal. I kind of keep on saying, well, so in given where what would be included the UAGC, like anyway, it's such a way, so that would be helpful as well.
yeah, Councillor Taylor, response.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that comment, Councillor Williamson. And look, I'm also conscious that when you look at the dollar amounts on the proposed rates increases which we've gone out in certain sectors of the community, the dollar amounts don't equate, logically is not the right word. You look at the percentage increase, or Mangakino-Pouakani, for example, is much higher than elsewhere, but the dollar amounts are actually lower than some are more valuable homes. So my concern is we don't do the same with the UAGC, but like I say, more information. Thanks.
Very good. Any other questions?
Oh, yeah, sorry, a basic question, clarify to me, please. For example, venues, Taupō Event Centre, we've got rates share 79 and fees and charges 21, right?
Yep.
I don't quite understand the next column along, adjusted the bands. So that means adjusted the bands. So that means for different fees and charges, that percentage is varying between those bands. That's what it's sort of saying. And is that and overall, we've got 79 and 21. Am I reading that? Have I got that completely wrong?
Let me get to the page.
Yes, that's 79 and 21.
So someone who goes to the rock wall, rate payers paying 79% for them to use the wall, whereas the actual user is paying 21%.
Yes, yeah, that's how I read it, but I don't quite understand.
What's the question?
I don't quite understand when we're talking about the bands.
The band
Rates 65 to 80%. So what's
So currently the policy, the overarching policy, which is what we're talking about now, the revenue and financing policy, sets a band for how much revenue you expect to get from fees to charges. So for the Taupō Event Centre, the current policy is 25 to 35%. But what we can see is even after proposing significant rate fees increases to use those venues, we're still only going to get up to 21%. We're going to stay outside the identified bands of our policy of who should pay. So we're recommending adjusting those bands to 20 to 35% so that we're within the policy.
So we talk, well, which one are we talking about? The one you just talking about?
Taupō Event Centre.
So the current band,
is
because we're not given the current band, the current band is.
The current band is 25 to 35,
Right,
and the proposed change is to lower that bottom end to 20. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not in the fees document that you're looking at. Sorry.
Current band.
Right, I get it.
Reducing 20%.
Correct.
Yes, then I know.
Right, Duncan?
Sorry?
Move it.
Moving on, or?
I don't like to think about it.
I think you should move that.
We don't want to do this.
Low charge swimming pools and boat.
All right, okay, so,
So it'd be useful if the direction was you're comfortable with the policy, except for UAGC, we'd like more information. Too late?
So through the chair, sorry, we do need to do something because there's in previous LTPs, we've had a certain amount of costs split out from the democracy and planning area that was funded by general rate, but now that's all been put into the one place. So we do need to do some adjustments to the UAGC in terms of the percentage that the UAGC funds that cost centre or that activity and how much is funded by general rate. So there will be a change to the document. So it's not going to change the amount, it's going to change the funding split. So it's clearer.
And part of the reason we haven't proposed changes is, as you saw when we put out the potential rates impacts, the rates impacts are already weighted towards the smaller households, the lower value households. And adjusting the UAGC upwards would just exacerbate that impact. Yeah.
So Turangi, are we, that's still up for debate because if we go for under 16s and free, then that'll drop below the 4% to be down, I don't know, 2% or something. So then we're more, so do we, so we want to change the policy if we're going to do that.
Yep. So we could agree this in principle, and then we could go through all the fees. And if that necessitates us to look back at our policy, we will do that.
Okay.
Okay.
come on, I can even come to Rankin. I feel that the benefits they are, what are we doing? You want to do people charges or that's what comes lunch? In the street. Where you run the picture, shall
No, it's a thing here.
Was it?
Yeah, that's all. If you want to get this from.
That'll be all right.
Yeah.
You're right, next time with that.
Unfortunately, that's with central government, so we have to carry out something from an old piece of legislation.
You don't have a license to be a tattoo.
No, I think you do for a heater.
Perhaps because they used to shave you with a blade.
Yeah, well, because they let you get pricked with a needle when you give the tattoo.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, this is a bit frivolous, but what about nail bars and things where they're actually there is the chance of infection and stuff? Is that a bit like tattoo? It
is. It's or this when you check that one, I don't think they're exempt as well.
No, they're exempt as well. Which is actually, it's a conversation that's happening with the MPI at the moment around because of the change in industry and there's work alluded to. It's a very old 70-year-old piece of legislation. Cool, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to be conflicted then. You get on topic. So what about the ones that work from home? Just say depends. Hairdressers, morning hairdressers.
Oh, yeah, they've got to have a license.
Yeah. And you talk about your.
Through the chair, so sorry, it might not be the right forum anyway, but back to the food premises, health inspection. I think that's what we're talking about.
Food premises are under the Food Act and health premises are under the Health Act, so they're two different things. The Food Act fees and charges have gone out for consultation already with the dog control fees. This is the health component of it.
Oh, just my comment, observation, like other places, like say Auckland had the A, B, C, D, E rating. We don't. We just have it's like a pass fail, isn't it? Which
the food grading certificates were pre the Food Act. Some councils decided to continue that bylaw and others have removed it. So because of the Food Act legislation came through and essentially replaced that certificate grading.
Oh, so no, just an observation of mine, and is probably not late to this, but well, you hear reports about a certain fast food outlet near the lakefront, which gets bad reviews. Obviously, they probably meet the minimum standard and pass, but in a place like Auckland, you can clearly see on these places, you know what you're getting, but around here, you don't. Oh, but here, there's no A, B, C, D, it's just a...
So through the chair, just to answer that, if Duncan Warwick's correct around the fact that the Food Act actually has replaced those bylaws that have those gradings, and actually the Food Act has put in place a whole lot tighter food protocol, things like food control plans, etc., and far more regular inspections. So, for example, in Auckland, you can have an A grade rating that can sit with you for 3 years before it needs to be reviewed under the Food Act, which is coming.
Well, they're still carrying on with the old system.
Yeah, so essentially the Food Act has replaced that system, and it's actually a lot better and a lot tighter controls over the way that food is handled in services.
But it is still pass fail. It's not a grade.
Well, it's not necessarily a pass fail. There's variations of verification. So there's a multitude of different components that you can either pass or fail, and then the verifications can be scheduled either 1 month, 3 months, a year, 18 months, or 3 yearly, depending on how you essentially what you end up with in terms of your compliance.
So in terms of the customer, is it kind of understandable, more transparent to them what they're getting into?
Yeah, I understand your concerns that you don't have the A, B, C, D grade like you used to, which was quite visible for customers. We're going under the Food Act, which reviewed. The thing to look for is a license or a certificate near their principal entrance, which should have their food control plan or a certificate to show that they've actually got their compliance. That's why some councils continued with that bylaw to have that ABC grade for that visibility. I take them forward to comments.
Auckland's still doing it, though.
I believe so, yes.
Right. Carry on.
Last one in our regulatory space is mobile trading fees. And again, we're looking at a sort of standard increase there to catch up on costs. The only exception is the no trading approval penalty. People go out and trade without going through the process. It's currently a $50 deterrent fee, and they want to bump that up to $100 to be an actual deterrent.
That popped up like in the fish park on Tūrangi-Tongariro Street.
Yes.
Is that really a deterrent? $100?
But certainly 50 wasn't.
The suggestion is $100 is not much of a deterrent on those pop-up caravans.
Yeah.
They haven't got a lot.
Yeah.
Take it up.
Well, I guess that's for you to discuss, but to be fair, the unapproved, we don't get very many of the unapproved ones. Probably about 2 years-ish or so ago, we did a down on people that were selling out of the boot of their car, etc. The unlicensed fish and fruit and veg. Yeah. So we don't get very many of them, but you could potentially bump it up if you felt like you wanted to. $50.
Yeah, I'd be in favour of popping up. We're charging people to be compliant, to do the right thing, more than twice what we are for fetching people who thumb their nose at the system. It just sends the wrong message. I guess it's going to cost more than $100 to send a compliance officer out to deal with the issue. I'd be more than happy to bump that up significantly. And you don't have a registration on your car, it's $200 for a start.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, yeah. You got the back, you got the green flag.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I just through the chair, I sort of agree, and I also think that, you know, private business, full-time businesses in Taupō can be affected by these mobile businesses, and they're paying a decent share of rate, so I don't have a problem with it anymore.
Councillor Greenslade?
I was just wondering, what do? They just come into a council office and they fill in a form or something, or do you actually go and inspect them, or what?
They can apply online for the trading in the public places, but that doesn't exempt them from having a correct food registration, etc., and all of the other compliance mechanisms that they may need to comply with if they're selling, if specifically if it's food or pre-prepared food or anything like that. Sorry, if they want to register with us, if they want to register as a food premises with us, and if to do that, then they absolutely are checked by the team. Yeah.
What I'm thinking is, in that case, why don't we leave the money as it is for registration, because that's what we want to do, and seriously bump up the one that isn't, because actually we want them to register with us. And they do have to tick a lot of boxes anyway, if they have to do it on their own, and the no trading approval could go to 200. So.
Councillor Lachlan?
Education business.
Just a quick one. Are these a strict liability fees, or is this an up to, like, you guys got the discretion?
No, that's your infringement.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
But the guys are typically taking education first approach. If somebody just didn't know the rules in the wrong place, you can get a warning and then. $200 fine. Okay.
So, how many of these fines have been? No one's ever been fined. No.
No, just not many.
I mean,
I couldn't tell you the number off the top of my head, but.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good.
Now we're into facilities. Thanks, Jess. Parks and reserves. We've got a number of here for people who want to use our parks and reserves. The approach we've taken here is to look at a sort of a community versus commercial use split. And we've got significant increases for commercial use, but we've tried to keep that down if we can for community groups. So these are the charges that are proposed. You see there's commercial events in there and community events with slightly different charges. We'll keep going. Any comments on those? So $200 for community and $265 for a commercial event. And so those are pretty much consistent fees across all our parks and reserves. They largely flow together. Only a couple of changes in there was a new charge for school groups who don't go through the Sports Advisory Council. They're free if they go through the Sports Advisory Council. But if they're setting up their own thing, there's a small fee in there, $70. Why? Steve?
Yep, sorry.
This is the school group charges.
So it's to pick up individual school use. So the schools have the ability to use their own school grounds. That some of them are requesting the use of Owen Delaney Park to move their cross country or whatever to. So through Sports Advisory Council, it's a collective. So all the schools, it's inter-school sports. So we've kept that price free. What we're proposing is if it's individual schools requesting Owen Delaney Park, when they have an alternative, that there is a small charge occurred on them.
Councillor Park.
Sorry, Steve, just to clarify, the Dell, which is the lower field and hilltop, is that a reserve or Ministry of Education land? Because I know that council mow it.
Yeah, no, we don't charge for that use.
So why does a school get a free reserve, but you want to charge other schools $70 to use council land? I don't understand.
So
It's not.
I'd have to check its delegation, and I'm not certain about the Dell, but if you use Taupō Primary, for instance, they can run their cross country on the back field, or they've got the option to move to Owen Delaney Park. And we're saying if they're taking that option, then there'll be a charge incurred.
But hilltop students can use hilltop
Dell.
reserve
Yep.
any day of the week,
Yep.
every school day.
Yep.
But there is no charge to hilltop for them to use public
Yeah.
land as part of their school.
Yeah, if it's Ministry Council land, if it's Ministry of Education land, well, then no, we're not charging, but I'd need to check that. Okay.
One.
Looking at particularly the sport clubs increase in fees. I don't have information on what impact current level of fees are having on those clubs. And we're in a position where we want to encourage activity and encourage participation in sport. And yet a 25% and up to 27% across the board increase in fees. I'm concerned we're going in the wrong direction with that. And I get it that we need, there's a user pay element here, but I just wonder, particularly for some of these clubs, if the impact is already significant on them and then we bump up 25%, whether that's going to have a really negative effect. And that does concern me.
And that's valid, and yes, it will have an effect. We see the fees and charges as they stand that some clubs are struggling with those amounts, whereas the 25 that was the steer and the guide we were given as officers to look at these charges. It's a proposal, and if you're uncomfortable, then there's absolutely every right of this group to.
So I can tell you I'm really uncomfortable with that, and I think we need to be doing all we can to encourage sporting activities. And based on that, I would be opposed to those changes as they sit.
Having said that, someone's got to pay. Because what you're saying is that we came to a lady in Tonga Street, playing cards, our neighbours every cheap and not going to pay. So that's an interesting debate, but someone's got to pay. What you're advocating is for the general rate card pay that cost instead of actually. Which was subsidised here anyway. Right.
Yeah, just two things.
Councillor Campbell.
Sport Waikato alternative funding, but that's not an option. Stuff.
Oh, not from Sport Waikato, but certainly through trusts. Absolutely, and a lot of clubs are doing that. Whether that's lotteries.
Oh, individual clubs.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Leave it up to them. And the second question, this homeschool group, they book things. They don't have school grounds to do it. So, from what you were saying, they're just a community group. No change. They're not going to get the $20 school group charge.
No. So again, I'm not across all their activities, but they're certainly involved in the inter-school events. So anything through Sports Advisory Council. So yes, no charge on them.
Oh, but when I know, for example, that the local school group might regularly book for a period Owen Delaney, a field of Owen Delaney. Well, they have in the past. I don't know if they're doing it now, but should they do that for their sports day sort of thing, one day a week? Are there fee?
Well, as it proposed, yes, there would be a fee for them.
Oh yeah, but what you mean? But before they got charged nothing?
Yes.
What do they get charged? What do they get charged now, and what are we saying they would get charged, for example?
Well, currently nothing in our fees and charges. So if we have charged, then that would have been a discretionary fee. What we're proposing is a set fee of $70.
Oh, because I thought you were implying that $70 fee applied to, say, schools using Owen Delaney instead of their own field.
That's right.
Was a home.
Well, they're a school group by
Yeah,
definition.
They don't have a alternative though, that they could be using, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
oh, no, of course, but I'm just saying, well, why?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
I don't know if we can gauge every little detail of every
Yeah.
applicant. You should be encouraging them to make a submission if that's going to cause significant financial harm to them. We don't know how wealthy or not wealthy they are or anything else, or how often it happens. But yeah, there's a lot of free stuff which you can just use anyway.
Yeah, but $70 isn't much, is it? That's not a day, is it? Well,
Yeah, it's a day. It's a nominal fee. Yeah.
okay. Sure, we can figure it out.
Thank you. I'm certainly agreeing with the issue over $70 for children, the parents pay rates. And I think it's just a bit too far, put the dollar on everybody else. I do think charging children to use our parks is not.
Not
acceptable.
Schools, it's just schools.
Yeah. School could be, but there's adult polytechnic,
Oh, they've got,
all sorts of.
well, you're talking schools, and polytechnic is not a school. I would imagine schools go up to the college beyond that, in rankings.
Polytechnic would come under that definition, would it say?
No.
Schools, it's a,
The other thing I wanted to ask you about why the 100% on the bond. Have you had issues and do you require to increase your bond to that amount?
yes. Yes, I guess is the short answer. Yeah.
People have been losing their bond and 500 has not been covering it.
Correct. So if you look, use an example, and again, through no fault of Home and Garden shows, but the wet weather we had on the Tongariro North Domain, and if you go and have a look at the tyre damage there, bonds don't go very far when we're replacing or needing to repair turf in that space. And look, again, that's discretionary how we choose. Is it willful or is it something that is outside of their control? And you would argue the weather activity, if they've used all the precautions they can, we provide turf matting and a lot of other things. If they've done those preventative tasks, then we're mindful that we're not applying bonds. But if they've been reckless, absolutely. And I guess it's not dissimilar to the conversation you just had around the fees for improper food vendors and the like. We want to bolster the penalty for those that are reckless with our space. Yeah. So I mean, if you take an example of the cost, so we've spent just over $20,000 in the last 3 months over Crown Park and Owen Delaney Park alone, maintaining turf. That includes line marking, but that work up there, yeah, it's significant.
This one's 94.
Carry on, and we'll look forward to the submission.
Well, but it'd be nice to have an idea of what dollars we're talking about.
On the screen.
They're going up average 20.
No. I mean, the overall effect on.
The overall revenue is there, 392,000.
If we give sports clubs a break, if we don't increase them, yeah, how much money are we not going to be raking in?
It's 25% of that number.
No, I mean.
Moving on, your wish.
Yeah.
Minister on
It's got to go out.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so approving for consultation.
Oh, go back to the weddings. I want to get married.
Oh.
One day. I'm just curious what the guy like. Yes, thing they rich baby.
Okay.
Thank you.
AC Bards.
How much do you go into the AC bars for the honeymoon?
The honeymoon pool. 15. We're proposing to leave the honeymoon pool.
So if you're talking honeymoon pool, this is in the private hot pools, 15, and that's to be maintained at 15 because in 2023, you reduced the fee from $25 per person to 15.
But we don't
Go from 10 to 12.
So well, that's the general entry to the pools going from 10 to 12, correct? 20%, yep.
Not with a local concession like that. It'd be half price.
Well, I've got to say, I think the clientele is quite different from Debret to AC bars.
That's because AC bars is cheap.
I mean, if you go to a decent hot pool, you go to Debret.
What age is it?
Well, it's not really open.
65 plus. Students also get discount.
Students get discount.
And one thing we want you to reaffirm here is, considering we're in a space where we're trying to put up fees to get the revenue we need, you could choose to reintroduce the charge for children and 5 and under. So reaffirm your commitment to continue to keep that free is something we'd like.
Well, but before we move on, could I just point out that I think this is in the same realm as the sports parks, as in giving a break to recreational facilities, which I believe is short on in this area, a district. We're in the same realm of that, actually, it's the same sort of question. But about those private pools again, I know we discussed this months ago. So did we get an update? What did we decide? We're going to close them. Well, did we decide that?
No.
I don't have a decide on that.
Yep, they're being maintained as they are at the moment.
Did we work out that the whole message?
Yeah.
So we haven't got a way around that complication with disposing of the.
Well, through a filtration, through spending money on a filtration system.
That's the only way out of that we've got.
There'll be a trade waste cost incurred on us.
And is that, what have we got in the LTP? What's the assumption? We're just carrying on paying that money?
No, the assumption is at that point, we will hibernate the pools.
Oh, okay. And we don't know when that is exactly yet?
I'm going to say within 2 years, I think was the number. I'd have to go back and check.
Right. Councillor Lachlan.
So we haven't done an increase since.
No, we've done an increase every other year, sort of a dollar, which has been close to CPI, but not the costs of running the facilities, which is why the share of funding from rates has increased every
We're going to maintain our percentages. We have to keep up roughly. Yep, there'll be some people who say that's terrible, but under, I don't think it's reasonable given the huge costs. But I see Kirsty's hand up, so I will finish talking. But yeah, I think it's not unreasonable.
Councillor Truman. Come on.
Nanu. I was just wondering whether we have so in our fees, we don't have anything for people with disabilities. And I know other pools do. So like you'd get a free person to be able to go in with you if you have a disability. I just wonder whether we need to add that. So, yeah, I know in Tukaroa, if you live in the district, it's actually free to go and take your caregiver if you've got a disability, and lots of other pools that we go to, but I just noticed that we haven't got that. So whether that's something we want to add, at least to take their carer in free, because they have, they need that just like an under 5 needs it.
It's a no-brainer, obviously.
Okay. Thanks, Kirsty.
Because we're going to move on from this. Steve, you sent you that stuff about extending, my question about extending hours.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, 8 o'clock made more sense than 9.
Yep.
Yeah, from what you sent through. Is this the time, if we were going to propose anything like that? I'm not convinced you'd want to do that all year round anyway, actually. Because that costs money to do that. I can't remember the figure did you give me a figure for that? Yeah. That would cost money. I personally think it would be healthy to do for certain times of the year. What's the appropriate time if we're going to propose anything like that? To no?
Well, I guess
Be proposed.
so. The change in time. So I mean, ultimately, as it stands, the set closing time would be 9 p.m. We're operating with a temporary closure of 7 p.m. 7:30 staff leave at the moment.
Well, let's consider that's defined, is it? We're calling it a temporary.
As it has been, yet we've come back to council and provided those updates.
We're discussing how much it costs, not how long it's open for. It's a reasonable discussion, but it's not part of this discussion.
Oh, but how long it's open for?
It's not part of this discussion.
Well, no, I would argue. If it costs more, then we should be charging more. I mean, if doing something costs more, then that would affect fees and charges, would it not?
I'm actually quite interested in 9 o'clock scenario, but when is that time to discuss? Right now, because of the fixed rates, haven't it?
Yeah, but this is that. I think we need to get through fees and charges and then perhaps have that conversation.
We can
Yeah, okay.
do that through a workshop.
With respect, it's a good discussion to have.
Yeah.
It's worth having, but this is not the discussion. This is about fees and charges.
Yeah, all right.
Just to clarify, when do we discuss that?
Do we?
Discuss it in the hours.
Can we? I can bring it back in a workshop to councillors at a separate time if that's proposed. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Councillor Greenside.
Thank you, Worship. Page 20, page 31. I brought this up before when we were talking about fees and charges. Previously, Genesis did subsidise pool in Turangi. And I did say at that time that I would like staff to approach Genesis again, because Genesis does the sponsorship for the southern end of Lake and Mercury does sponsorship for the northern end of the lake. I'm not going to ask whether anybody's done it or not, but I would like that conversation to be had with Genesis. Genesis have got plenty of money and there's no reason why we can't look at talking to them and seeing if we can't do something towards reducing the cost for families in the Turangi pools for the same reason I gave last time, is that we have no access to the lake unlike all the other districts.
Really not very coming from yourself and myself.
Somebody gives me a name, it will be Brian, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
We can do that.
I would like to talk to them and I would like to approach them. Have that conversation. I've been involved with them on other things and they've been quite generous about it, just isn't. So I think it's the old story, if you don't ask, you won't get.
Through the chair, so many of you will know Brian Forlong, who's our sponsorships, partnerships, money general person working in community engagement development team. We're currently looking at, I guess, a suite of things such as naming rights, sponsorships that we can do across the business. So not just focusing on the pools, but also focusing on a range of other opportunities. But we're doing that as a package. We'll put it on the website and I can send some details to everything as well, but it's underway, but just noting your interest in being part of those conversations.
Thank you, Lovey. Right.
Yeah, just to add to that, yeah, I reckon it'd be I seem to recall the number thrown at us by Paul Andrew was a couple 100,000, which seems to cover the under 16s in Turangi. I might be mistaken. It wasn't much at all. So it was kind of, I know we're already subsidising so much. I mean, it seems, but it seems there'll be a better way to get it down. I mean, a very, very cheap advertising for them. If they get the naming rights in the building or something for what, 40 grand. I mean, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah, it's been worked on.
Yeah, okay. There's obviously the better way to get it done.
So in the meantime, for the Turangi fees, are we comfortable putting this out for consultation?
Double.
Pending those discussions?
So everyone's still happy with 3 under 5? Yes.
Okay. All the other fees flow from those entry fees.
You can't have
2 under 2s in the water with you, so if you're a multiple parent, you can't take kids to pools.
What about what Thursday church there? Is that coming to a consultation like that?
We'll add that for Turangi pool as well. Yeah. Okay.
No, just a question though. I mean, this is a proposal for the public. So, I mean, if no one raises a murmur, then no big deal. But if the streets, because they don't want to pay an extra $2, I mean that's when we look at well, how much is it actually going to cost. And yeah, I mean
We will look at all submissions.
Correct.
As
Rights and account.
AP's admission charge, single entry, role is always a topic of conversation. We'll just see what happens, but I think $12. Facility of that quality. It's still not bad.
The Mangakino pool, again, we're looking for you to reaffirm your position that it is free. The option you could have there to keep that accessible would be to provide a summer pass potentially to a family at $25 to keep the cost down, still recoup some revenue given you're putting up prices at other pools. That's an option available to you.
So I'm assuming that, oh, she's eyeing me. I'm assuming that this is partly because there's not big numbers administratively. You don't have their full-time staff there and all those other things.
For Mangakino pool, so if there was a nominal charge, let's say $2 a head or something or other, yes, absolutely, that administration costs that would go hand in hand. It's not worth it, no. So the proposal is to look at a one-off fee that a family or a household could pay, and we remove substantial administration and safety issues around catching costs at the point of using the pools.
Because it's not exactly a safe place for the kids to swim down at the lake at the moment either. We're trying to address that, and I think the admin of even a 25% family pass would be cost prohibitive for us. I think it doesn't make financial sense for us to even engage in that. So status quo for me.
Councillor Leonard?
What are the health and safety requirements? So if we don't charge a fee, we don't have to provide lifeguards and things.
Oh, we do provide lifeguards. So it's not a pool safe accredited pool, so we don't have an obligation to man the pool, but from a risk perspective, we've chosen to man it and would continue to man it. I see it shouldn't be treated any differently as the Turangi or Turtle pools.
Oh, just occurred to me. I mean, some other places, I'm sure Auckland too, because they have an under 16 or something scheme. But if we consider a non-resident fee for this, I mean that's sound. I mean you got to prove you're a resident, as in bring a rates notice or something like that. So we could be charging non-residents more to use AC baths and all the rest.
Yeah, and certainly we do that for children. So local children are free, visiting children have to pay, and we have discounts for concession cards if you're a multiple user, or if you get a 3-month pass. That's how you get your sort of local discount at the moment.
Oh no, yes, but I just wonder. I mean, I'm not sure the proportion of non-resident users of AC baths, but we could be charging them $15, $16 adults instead of 12, and we might be able to get away with charging locals 10. I mean, that's an interesting question, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, and I guess without trying to go off topic or anything, just keeping in mind that every time someone walks through the doors at the AC bars, the cost for them to be in that facility is about $30 per head. So if you were looking at if it was around recouping costs, then maybe your out of town visitors are paying a fee closer to $30. I think that.
It's more about getting it cheaper for locals, and making visitors pay the premium.
Years ago, and I think you've gone if you're a ratepayer, you pay. Logistically, it's got might be the treatment, checked out, and all that sort of things. But I think we've got it about right, so we'll move on at this stage and look for the permission on that. Right, what's next?
Taupō Event Centre. Again, we're looking at, this is one where we try to separate out commercial from community. Slightly larger increase, 30% odd for commercial activities and a smaller one for community activities. Any comments? So those are for hiring the venue.
Just trying to understand the rationale here. So when we look at the stadium for the community, it's half of the commercial rate.
Roughly, yeah.
Well,
When you're
if I
talking
look at
parks and reserves.
700 something, the stadium, 700.
Yeah.
And then if I look at the other rates, like for the domain use, thinking about something, I don't know, like the weekend where they were charging $5 a person to go through versus the Christmas carnival, it's not double community versus, it was about $100 difference.
You're talking Tongariro North Domain?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is there a reason that?
So it is, so High Ridge Tongariro Domain for a commercial event today is $530. For your community, yep, you're right, your community events proposed to move to 400 to not half. No.
Is there a reason that would charge half of the community, the event centre, and not half of it at our other facilities?
Yeah, well, so it's we don't have a same model of 50% users of commercial, 50% measures of community. So we have a higher community usage than we do a commercial usage, and this is actually some of our challenge. Is that getting that balance right? If everything was equal, the same amount of equal users, then that would be fine.
And also in here, climbing wall and the memberships associated with that. And moving down, smaller increases for chalkies clubs, just reflecting that we made quite a significant increase last year. So we didn't want another large increase off the back of that.
Yep.
Is it yearly pay or 120?
Yeah, or the length of their memberships per term.
Fitness studio also in that complex, increases there.
This will go really careful because that's a lot of private facilities now. Incredible. Going to become budget. All right, 165 to 200. 20% on average, 21%. That's right.
Is it well attended, Steve?
The gym, yeah, we have good membership. Yes, yeah. I did have Dee to share the numbers. No, I think we don't do the group. How we've sort of managed it is, and our point of difference is we're not doing the group classes anymore. We used to do the Les Mills classes and the like. We've removed all that. So
Is that
yeah, if Empower, you could be paying $26, $27 a week for a standard membership. So you're well over $1,000 for a year's membership. Oh yeah, yeah, but that's your base rate. Then you pay for those classes on top of that, as we used to do too. Is he in the room? Low blow. Scott did a good piece of work back then. Oh look, they weren't financially viable for us to do.
We've got to balance that out as well. There's gyms like Utah, so VA cooperate with town as well. They offer a different service game, so mind boggling.
All right.
Okay, Great Lakes Centre, it's got the same.
I mean, you haven't done a, say, gym membership, or you haven't worked out a subsidised, ratepayer subsidised portion versus user, I mean, it was a bit too hard to.
I've only got it for the whole venue, yeah.
No, okay. No, I mean, generally speaking, yeah, well, apart, stuff like that, which is in competition with private, yeah, the subsidy is a bit questionable.
Let's talk about.
Yes, but for things like lap swimming pool or even rock climbing, because there is no competition, and we're effectively providing them. Well, swimming pools are just a dead duck, because you're not going to get a private lap swimming pool set up and compete, because it's just that no one would pay. But I'm just, I would be interested if we, well, similar argument to the playing fields, because we're not in competition with anyone playing fields, and we're providing them. What the cost to ratepayer is if we didn't have any increase on these things like AC bars, sports grounds. Sorry. Yeah, that was what 2% on rate. Do you reckon? Probably. Well, it sounds like a lot, but
A big yes and huh?
yeah.
On the spot.
No, because my general theme is there's not a lot of stuff for young teenagers. I suppose I'm thinking of more kiddies, teenagers to do, and we've got some premium facilities, so let's make them more available for them.
I think
because we've got
the
them.
bookings for the events are solid.
For the stadium, absolutely. We had a business case in there for a fourth court at the event centre for the purpose of supply and demand. Yes, we were oversubscribed.
Great Lakes Centre. So Great Lakes Centre was the same approach, where we looked at a larger increase for commercial activities to try and keep it down for the community, and a similar approach across the board. Any comments? Libraries. This is one where we collect very little revenue, and we don't see a lot of opportunity to collect a lot of revenue there. So largely we're sticking with the status quo. Some minor increases here and there, but largely most services are free.
No, we removed charges, a lot of the fees.
Only when the book's gone, I think.
So does that help?
I think when Louisa provided feedback, it was negligible, the revenue we were earning out of it. And again, from an administration perspective, so how, if we were to take a fee off a Mangakino-Pouakani, it didn't warrant the staff's time.
No, because I feel when I get books out, I feel less inclined to get it back by the due date. I know I'm going to get fined. I'm just saying, that's human. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels like that. But the other thing was on this library topic. I know we didn't necessarily want to stray into opening hours.
No, we don't.
But I did have one point to make about it. But hold on. In terms of rates.
Comment on the documentation, huge increase in e-use libraries. And of course that immediately covers sending things back late and whatever. It's massive, more than 1% use, which is really heartening. And I know in Turangi, older people actually find it really useful. They don't have to go to the library and sit people and so forth. It's been really great for libraries of that. So you might not see people actually physically in the library, but they are actually really using it.
Opening hours, another discussion.
I'll finish here, but not about open hours. I recognise we just out 300,000 a year on books.
Yes.
By 300,000.
Yep.
Yes. I'm suggesting, and this is I'm suggesting, because I think Steve gave not finally calculated, but a rough order, 100 grand a year to
25
have alternative opening hours. Yep. Spend 200 grand on books and spend a bit more money on having better access.
Just you what I just said.
The lady did say Sunday was their visit day. It's got to be looked at, but not today. Thank you very much.
So what are you now?
Yeah, the next one is the museum and art gallery, and that's again, it's free for locals, and the charges are pretty low. Small increase if you're not local. The increases there are pretty minimal, with the exception of people booking the rooms, which we're very low to start with.
You happy with that? Yeah. Can't wait. Let's move on.
Community halls and conference rooms. Again, standard increase across the board to recoup more costs, with a lower increase for community groups where possible. This is community halls. At the moment, you get a half day for $60. We're going to do away with the half day rate, which might be a challenge, and a full day rate would be 140. Yeah, otherwise there is an hourly rate if there is an hourly rate if there's one an hour or two. But we'll get feedback from the community if that creates an issue. Superloo is free. Yes, yes.
You've got the Turangi gym down the bottom there.
Yes.
Should we double it?
Yeah.
Triple it.
It's an hourly rate. This is an hourly rate.
Yes.
No, the people who run those things down there, all volunteers. Just think, you know, $15 or $16. I mean, you know, you're putting it up by $4. It's just like, can you just not leave it like it is? It's gonna really break the bank. It's an hourly rate. We're talking hourly rate. This is not an evening rate, and it is the evening that it's used for.
Yep, this is your decision. Yep.
So does the gym have an hourly rate? I haven't.
Well, that's what it is.
I
It's an
didn't
hourly.
know.
So the
It is
gym,
like that.
so not in a weights gym, it's you're talking a hall
Gymnasium.
space, gymnasium space. Yeah, I think you're confusing it with the fitness suite.
Sports teams book it for an hour.
Bye. Move on. We'll get some. Oh my God.
So Superloo is free, the shower cost, but we give them free towels, etc. So
It's still
Yep.
wouldn't cover the washing the towels. Good for the homeless. Move on. Cemeteries. Oh my God. Don't.
Sorry, just before we move on, Superloo showers, how does that compare to the AC? Can you just have a shower at the AC bus?
$5.
Five.
Yeah, yes, was 5. I think we proposed change. No, they don't get a towel. They don't get a towel or soap. I think it's $5 there too. Yep.
Well, it's mostly used by visitors.
Yes, yeah, but yes, your campus, Freedom Campus. Yep, yep.
You can get your children to the shower at 5.
Okay, cemeteries,
cemeteries are the next one. Some quite significant increases there. Again, this is one where we've dropped away from our band, which is largely user pays. The costs are quite substantial for essentially digging and largely bringing them in outside hours on a weekend. And staffing, yeah, and they're contracted for how many hours they'll be paid under their union contract. So it's quite an expensive fee. They did have a look at how these fees compared with other districts, and they were broadly comparable, the new ones that we're proposing. So again, we've tried to keep it cheaper. Yeah. Any comment on that before we move on?
I'll just quickly, just compare the Rotorua Cemetery. Do we have the, I've checked out Taupō Cemetery. Do we have these wall things, people put plaques and all that sort of stuff as an option? They're also. Yeah, well, I mean, are there lots of options that they have here? Yes.
Yep. Particularly you got the smaller ash plots. This is the big plots.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's plots dug into the ground. Do we not have walls where they plonk them in? So, yeah.
I'll go to the 51.
OPP one?
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Then we've got a number of transport, water and wastewater charges. These are largely cost recovery based on whatever our contract is that we pass on. So these aren't about making money. These are just passing on specific costs for specific services. Unless there's any comment, we'll move on from those.
Bond, we're crossing bond nil proposed. We won't take a bond.
Yeah, this is something they've not used at the moment. So they're proposing to remove that.
Through the chair, it was probably a lot of administration for something that's not used very often.
Oh, I see. So there is a bond now, but you've taken away. You don't.
Correct.
Oh.
Okay. Water supply, again, that's the same. We've got a number of charges if you connect up your property, and that's depending on the cost of providing that service through Downer or something similar. Trade waste is where they pay to use our wastewater treatment services if they put something special in the pipes. And again, we've identified that they're not recovering their costs there, and the guys want to progressively move those costs up over time so that we're recovering the full amount. But 25% was seen as a reasonable increase at one point in time, but there'll probably have to be in following years to reflect that.
I just want to ask you about the Toby location. Those are our Tobys. Why we are charging people to locate our own Tobys? I'll tell you what, you put them in the most peculiar places. I had to find a Toby recently, and it was right in the middle of a driveway. And it was not where you said it was on the plans. On the plans, you said it was on the side of the driveway. Yeah. On the plans, you said it was on the side of the driveway, and right slap bang in the middle of the driveway.
Toby location.
Toby relocation.
Toby just finding it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
215, 10 million.
Yeah, certainly, there's occasions when sometimes we do need to charge. And so we have a fee there for that. And we've got pretty good records for district-wide. We've got pretty good records of all of our assets. Now, Turangi is obviously a bit different, and that's just purely historical and legacy. And some of those other outlying, when I look at some of the dam villages that are around, you know, when the hydro was put in. But we've got a fee there because sometimes we will go out and do some work maybe for a developer or something like that. So we need an item in there so that if we are going to go and do some work which is extra over and above that we would normally do, then we have a fee that we can charge.
Sorry. Can I just get back up a couple of pages? I missed it. Sorry. Oh.
No, yeah, there's a private conversation going on here, which should be going through the chair. It's the matter of protocol.
Councillor Campbell.
Oh, yeah, just skipping back a few pages. My apologies about that. Traffic management plan. You've got some figures there, but there's nothing current. Does that mean we weren't charging them anything for checking over their traffic management plan? Really?
Yep, that's through the chair. That's my understanding.
Oh.
Yep, so we're looking to recuperate those costs now. Some of that was just simply absorbed into the team, and now we are leaning on some external support in that space. So we want to make sure we recover those costs.
No, yeah.
Okay, I think we're at solid waste now. Are they still with us? So the first one is the yellow bag collection that recovers the cost of the collection of your curbside bag. That's the price of your sticker or your bag. I noticed that yeah, I won't go into that. So there is an increase in the cost of providing that service. This is just year one. So this is before any changes you may make to how we deliver that service. But at this point, even for year one of the LTP, there's a cost increase that we need to recover. So those yellow bags are supposed to be 100% cost recovery. So we're looking at an increase from $2 to $2.50 per bag. It's still very cheap compared to elsewhere in the district, country.
Just around the tyre disposal, there's a new national charge that has come out at the time of purchasing a tyre, which is meant to cover the disposal of the tyre. It's $15 per tyre.
Through Mr. Chair, the Tyre-Wise program is just being implemented as we speak, which will require funds to be spent on the purchase of a tyre for it to be recovered. We've set a fee here. I'd like to actually sit back and just see how many other tyre processors and users actually set up and join the scheme before we make a decision. At the moment, we are pushing commercial tyres to the industry. And I think if industry can handle the cost and recovery of their own tyres, it's not a burden on ratepayers. So at this stage, we'll be setting a fee, but it might be that in long term, we either join or we don't join the Tyre-Wise program. But the fee set there will be enough to cover that process.
So where does that sit? I paid $28 last week to purchase 2 tyres for disposal of those 2 tyres at the end of life.
Yes.
So then at the end of life, I go to the dump and I get charged $40 to dispose those 2 tyres when I've already paid $28.
So in that space, what you'd be doing is you'd be going back to the tyre company that you bought. So if you went back to, so let's say Terry's Tyres, not to mention, but a local tyre company, you bought those tyres off them. When you go back and take your car back, that refund will be given back to you at the time of changing over those tyres. It's a fee that drags the tyre back to the processing of the tyre, as opposed to randomly taken. So if council gets on board with that, then we'll be able to, then would remove that charge from there, and because it would be pay up front. But we are at this stage looking for the industry to be able to provide that service, so the tyre wouldn't come back to us. That's where we want to be.
And you have the ability to adjust these fees by resolution should it turn out that our costs decrease for some reason.
Double dipping, because I understand it's come out of legislation from central government. And then as a district council, we're charging again. So I'm struggling with that. I'll have to look into it.
Oh yeah, just another off-the-cuff question. Tyre recycling, I mean, tyres get recycled for playground materials. Is that a thing where they get pushed or?
So the main, through your chair, the main use of tyres is tyre-derived fuel, TDF. You can only have so many tyre swans sitting around. There is a little bit used for rubber matting, but most of it's used as a fuel. Yep. They do make mats, but most of the largest percentage is used as a fuel source. And tyres at this stage, part of the Tyre-Wise program, will be going up to the Northland cement kiln. Most of the stuff that can't get in there will be exported overseas. Yeah.
So the other main increase after the cost of the yellow bag or your sticker is the tip fee or landfill transfer fee. Again, we're looking at an increase of 24% there, from $210 a tonne to $265 per tonne. We know there were concerns around how did that stack up compared to other districts. We've had a look at that, and yellow is what our proposed fee would be relative to some of our neighbours there. The black ones are commercial providers. They're typically more expensive. The blue ones are other council providers. But you can see, notwithstanding concerns about fly tipping, that we do have low tip rates relative to other councils.
Can I just add on to that? That low tip rate reflects all of a large portion of those other locations have to transport their waste to an alternative disposal site. They haven't got a landfill sitting there. So you could probably whack on another $80 a tonne or more if we end up getting into the space where we're having to transport out. So that's a reflective of we've got our own landfill.
And fly tipping is, of course, a concern, particularly when you put up charges. So we're thinking we're going to at least do some targeted comms with particular partners in that space. A lot of what we see dumped is things that could actually be dropped off for free or could be dealt with other ways. And there's lots of ways you can bring down the cost of going to the tip by diverting some of your material. So I think we're hoping to support some of this with some good comms around what people can do to make this manageable.
I just wondered about the green waste. I presume this happens in other transfer stations. So at our transfer station, it's all then processed through a machine, and it's all piled up high there, and people can come and they can still come and help themselves and take it away there. You know, it used to be free. It was free for a very, very long time that you could dump your green waste there. I just wondered if there was another way of looking at it rather than, you know, charging for it to be dumped, whether we charge for it to be taken away. That's actually, you know, going to people's gardens and what they're doing. I don't know. It's just that there's always seems to be such a mountain of green waste down here. Everything grows so blooming fast all the time. It's just a never-ending battle.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So the cost is for the processing of material. We provide it for the community free of charge. In all of the transfer stations apart from Broadlands Road, just because of the sheer volume of material there, the contractor is into a commercial arrangement. Sometimes we empty the facilities out and bring some of the material up here if we need some more room, but we would love to build some connections in our communities to take more material free of charge. It's sitting there. It's good composted material. So I've put out the words to local marae and things like that. If they want material, maybe we can provide a truckload of it. Yeah, it is. We do get lots of people coming in for free, but there's always a growing mountain, as you've identified, Sandra. Yeah.
That would be really ideal, going out. I think there'd be a few community gardens who might even take you up on that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. The last one, I think, just about the last one, is housing for the elderly. Again, this is one where we have put up fees about $5 a year for the last 5 or 6 years at least, and that was consistent with CPI early on, not so much in the last few years, but certainly not kept up with the cost of providing the houses or the housing market in generally. So quite a significant increase proposed for those people who rent our units. Still a hell of a lot cheaper than anything comparable anywhere else.
Yeah. 135, 170.
Yeah, and we'll still be slightly just under the target there that we normally have. Used to be 50-50 several years ago. So. That's just left. He certainly did some comparatives with similar entry-level market stuff and other social providers, and we're relatively cheap. Yeah. Turangi Aerodrome we're taking out because they manage that all by themselves, and then we've got some minor charges here for people, not minor charges here for people who rent our town spaces, put their chairs out there and serve them at the cafe. Increases for those, that's essentially commercial use of those spaces. And then we've got some internal fees for people requesting information from us. And these are all increases to reflect the cost of providing those services. These are not widely used. They're not a big money maker. Most people find that they can get the information they want relatively cheaply elsewhere.
Not a triple the Lagoima ones.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
The Lagoima one is something that it's similar to central government guidelines on what you charge. Not sure we've ever actually charged it unless there's something that's particularly difficult to deal with. It's something that's only charged in the rarest of circumstances. There's a number of things you need to go through before you can charge for a Lagoima. You've got to make sure that the request is reasonable and clear and narrow the scope, go through all those processes. If it's still going to take a hell of a lot of staff time to deliver the request, then you can start talking to them about charging. But it's the last thing you get to. I don't think we've ever used it. All government departments I've ever worked at have this in their policy. I've never seen anyone use it. Yeah. It's really for those spurious ones that would take a hell of a lot of time to answer. Yeah. Okay, we've come to the end in one piece. Yes, there are 2 changes. $200 for the fine if you don't get your appropriate permit for working in the public area, food court, whatever it was. And free person carer with disabilities at the pools. It sounds like that is something we do currently offer, but we'll make sure that that's available and clear to everyone. Yeah.
Caravan, you can't charge for literacy, can you?
Yeah, there is a charge.
It is on that. How much is it?
It's on
400 minutes.
Yeah, the chair, yeah, the limit charge, you're talking about the litter infringement. Yeah, so it's $400, which is the maximum set by legislation. So we can go anywhere between 0 and 400.
So if you see someone littering, what is the process?
Well, generally it's asking them to pick it up if we can identify them. If worst case scenario is the infringement, but if you waive a $400 infringement, usually you gain compliance by saying, hey, we'll pull this if you sort that out.
All right, very good. Thank you, Aidan. Thank you, everyone. Councillor Lockwood, please. You've moved 4 out of 5 today.
I know. I'm saving on typing.
Incredible workload. Thank you very much. Moved and seconded by Councillor Lockwood, Councillor Park. All those that amended. Yep. Resolution there. All those in favour, please say aye. Carry. 4.7.
Can I just clarify your question? This question on the opening hours, is that going to come up when? Is that?
Not in this
when?
council meeting.
No, not this council meeting. I recognise that.
Yes.
People just dealing with it fine, so staff are emailing at the moment to find.
Oh, no, okay. Because that is an LTP question, of course.
It's an LTP.
Money.
I guess I would say that the conversations we've had on the financial forecast have been quite clear, that we brought them to you based on current level of service, reducing level of service, and that's the assumption that we've worked on. But we literally are having emails with that on through at the moment to try and find the type of information. I was really conscious about the team that needs to be elsewhere this afternoon.
Roundabout. Okay. Approval of draft rates remission and face bonus policy for consultation.
Yeah, so largely these are long-standing policies we've had. For example, we remit our penalties if people can give a good reason for their penalties. In the events of natural disaster or water leaks, we give them remission too. So most of these are long-standing policies that are unchanged. A couple of minor changes. We've got a remission policy for Māori freehold land under development currently. So when the land's not developed, it's free. Once it's developed, they pay rates. This is about what happens in the interim. And at the moment, we've got a sliding scale where it goes from being 80% remitted down to 20% over time. We're just proposing that's simplified and just 100% remitted until they're developed, and then they'll pay rates. Another one that's come up through consultation, particularly with marae and churches, is putting in a new remission on the toilet pan charges for community organisations, maraes and churches. So it's quite a significant part of their rates bill. They've got a number of toilets and they're charged per pan. We're proposing, so currently there's no remission, that's quite a big part of their rates bill. We're proposing a 75% remission for them, which is something they've been calling for a number of years. And the benefits they provide to the community is one reason, the other is how they use this in practice is the other reason. So. And then lastly, we're required to include some, yes? Correct, we already remit general rates, but they're required to pay their wastewater and water and refuse rates. So this will be a significant discount to their refuse, to their sewage rate, yes. Yeah. And the last one is a change required by the Act to reflect the Te Ture Whenua Māori Act.
Yeah, so in terms of the remission, I had a little look into it myself. Most maraes aren't going to be significantly changed by this. And so there is particular ones like Waitanui. They're built a new marae facility and built way too many extra toilets. So they went from no rates while they're building, because they don't charge rates for building, to $6,000 a year overnight because they just built. But you'll find that the bulk of maraes up and down door here don't get significantly impacted. One or two A lot of them, they're at the wop-wops. They don't have any shutters because they're long drops or something similar. Yeah, so there is Waitanui, possibly Nukahi. They were the two ones. So White in Park.
Okay. Christy, you hearing this?
But yeah, I mean, in terms of the conversation, 90, if you do the stats, you might have marae gets used in big tangies, 10 times a year if you're lucky. So the rest of the time, those toilets aren't being used at all. The background was policy is churches and marae shouldn't be charged the same way as a hotel. They're quite different animals. But yeah.
Yeah, this has been a long discussed issue for churches and marae, just because of the usage. It's not a constant usage, it's just at certain times. Yeah.
Okay. Reasonably happy with that, thanks. And I think that, just like Kirsty's got this problem for years. Just don't put in the toilets next up, please. All right. That's the what you said.
So I read the agenda, it's just a typo on last conclusion October 2024, should be 2023, the workshop. Page 25 is fine.
Apologies.
Okay, right, everyone's happy, resolution to accept the approval of the draft range of motions on postponement policy. Nothing, Tony, in the back there? All good, happy? Okay. Have a move, please. Thank you. Mr. Rankin, thank you, Councillor Williamson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carry.
Thank you.
4.8, approval of the draft performance management framework for the consultation. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship, and good afternoon, councillors. Yeah, so I'm lucky last on the agenda. So today, just seeking approval of the performance management framework, which basically sets out and shows to our community how we're doing against how we said we would. And we report on this. We set it through the long-term plan, but we report on it annually through the through the annual report. And so just a reminder in there that the performance measures for the three waters and transport are set by the Department of Internal Affairs. So we can't change the wording of those measures. And also just to highlight that for there are two performance measures that still refer to the drinking water standards, which is no longer applicable. So unfortunately, like every other council, we saw it in a funny position where we're having to report on something that's no longer applicable, but we are hoping that this is something that will be resolved sometime in the future. So, yeah.
Curious, do we do any sort of internal monitoring on our target during the year just to see if we're going to be on track or not? Among all the measures, but just interested in things.
Yeah, so the answer is yes.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Fanny. Any other questions about Fanny? Councillor Campbell.
Oh, sorry, so series of fatal crashes. That was we talked about that last time. Did we do anything? Sorry.
So the short answer is no. So the difficulty was, so that is a measure that's set by the Department of Internal Affairs. Yeah, so we can't change that one. So the difficulty was when we were looking to use something another measure, it had a different data set and it would just be confusing. So really struggled to come up with something that would be meaningful, but not complicate against the measure that we have to report on.
Yeah, because, yeah, not that excited with the set, objective, because it doesn't seem attainable to me, that's the problem. I thought if we had, yeah, that's the only problem I've got with that one. Not that it's the end of the world, we just won't attain the target.
Yeah, and so we'll be in the same boat as every other council.
These aren't included in our statement of service performance.
Yes, that's correct. So we've just separated them off separately, but when it's included in the long-term plan, that will sit amongst, so water, for example, will sit in the water activity within the long-term plan. So it'll also talk about, we have to say what we do and why we do it and what the negative effects are, and then we'll also include our performance measures.
The formal statement of service performance, what's included?
It's included.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Tanya.
Thank you.
Things for the investment. Councillor Western, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Western. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for lasting the distance today, and appreciate all the officers and the agenda items, all the reports gone.
We need a good closing here from Councillor Trewavas.
Yes, I do that. Done a few landmark statements. Oh, so what else?
Got to be busy.
And thank you everyone for being here, and those online too. Thank you. Right, Councillor Shepherd, thank you.
Te rito o tēnei hui. He wātia I runga, he wātia I raro, aro ki te tika, aro ki te pai.
Thank you very much. Yeah.